Think we're recording. This is Red Boswell with, looks like we're recording now. This is Red Boswell with IFPG. I'm joined today by Ryan Zink, co-founder and president, CEO of, are you president or CEO? I think you're CEO.
CEO, yeah, CEO.
Franchise Fastlane. Ryan, thanks for being on the call today. We are here to discuss real life, this unprecedented situation we're in. I'm interviewing franchise leaders. What are you doing? What are you seeing? Share with us your plan, both what you've been doing and what you're going to continue doing for your clients. Ryan?
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for asking, Red. And as discussed, I got a presentation here that I'll share, but just to kind of overview it, you know, we are going to get our full team aligned, right? We're representing 13 brands. We have 27 people on the team. We are going to get them fully aligned on a couple of things. What our strategy or our process is going to be, how we direct candidates from phase to phase through this time of uncertainty, the terminology that we use, and making sure that candidates understand that this is not necessarily a time that we're asking them to make a decision. If they're ready to do that, absolutely, we're here for them. But maybe this free time is an opportunity for them to get educated, get prepared for when the market comes back, for when the uncertainty is gone, to make a decision. So if you think it's a good time, I'm happy to pull up some of these slides that we're going to use currently.
Please do. This is fantastic. We were talking earlier and we were just going to do a little conversation. And when you shared with me what you were going to share with your team, I said, guys, whatever we can do, Ryan, for you to be able to share this with everyone, I think there's some real gold in here, especially for franchisors, for vendors to the industry, whether it's franchising or not. There's just some real good planning and some communications in here that I think a lot of folks will really benefit from. So take over.
Great. Well, why don't I dive in, and whenever you have some questions, Red, just stop me or I'll keep going. So first, right here on slide one, you see our theme. We've designed a theme around this, and this is what the approach that our team is going to take is understanding with a side of urgency. Understanding that people are uncertain as to what's going on with their jobs, their families. Understanding that they don't want to travel. Understanding that maybe they just have a hard time getting focused on an opportunity right now. And while we have that understanding, we also still will create urgency. Urgency has always been part of franchising, right? We can't sit on our hands forever and hope the decision is going to be made. We have to take the right steps throughout the education process to move ourselves closer to which franchise is going to be a right fit. So let me scroll through this. So the agenda is what we know has happened, what we've already learned in this short amount of time, what we expect to happen, what we say to candidates, and then what we hope happens. I hope EcoMaids doesn't mind me stealing a little slide from them, but on the left there, you see something they posted on a virtual discovery day they were having. And one of the things we know has happened is virtual discovery days work. You know, through franchise webinars, through brand calls, even things that I've seen online, we have heard several examples that candidates are still buying off of virtual discovery days. I know some people think, well, they're not going to be there in person. How do we really give that experience? But it's working. Maybe not to the level it was before, but we can still move people through the process to a buying decision using a virtual discovery day.
Do you know what, I've been asked this several times by franchisors and even some friend dev folks and consultants. Do you have a preferred software service for these discovery days?
We love Zoom. The ones that I hear are being used the most are Zoom and Google Hangouts. So those would be my recommendation. I actually think IFPG is putting together a document on something I had sent over around how to host a virtual discovery day and some of the technology to use. So I think, I don't know if we can distribute that at the same time as this call, but it's got some resources in there.
You know, on that topic, I'll mention this Tuesday, we're posting this on Monday, so tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have yourself, myself, Eric Schechterman from Bennett Trends, and Michael Hayes from Teriyaki Madness doing a follow-up call for franchisors on how to optimize the franchise discovery process during this crazy time we're in. So appreciate you stepping up to help us with that. We'll see everybody on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central for that. Back to you, Ryan.
Great, thanks. Yeah, second thing we know is across the world, you know, China and some of the countries that have experienced this before we have. They're starting to rebound. We're just hearing a little bit of news about how the curve is flattening. 42 Apple stores have opened. Schools are starting to reopen. Travel is starting to open up. So there's several months ahead of us. We have to go through some pain before we're going to get to this point, but we know that this is temporary and we're going to rebound. The third thing we know is Franchise Fastlane, we are still awarding franchises. Our deals that were late stage prior to this scare have closed. People may have wanted to have an additional conversation. We've asked our franchisors to really engage with the franchisees, to call them personally, to make sure they know what the plan is and how they're going to support them through these uncertain times. But we are still closing those deals. Now, those were deals that were already set up. They were late stage. I think the real test for us now is for new candidates that are entering the process. How far do they go through, and how many of them will be willing to make a buying decision? And then the last thing we know, and this is very short term, I actually have some of the statistics getting pulled right now from our team. Our lead flow is down, but not drastically. Just this week alone, we have seen a little bit lower numbers in territory checks, a little bit lower numbers in leads. But I want to stress the little bit part. This is not something that went from, way up here to way down here. We have just seen a small decline, and we're really going to watch. I've heard the U, we expect to experience maybe a little bit of a down, and then we want to watch the flat before we start to see the up. So we're going to be watching that pretty close at Franchise Fastlane. So what we expect to happen, this is the second slide in a row. I've stole something from a smart person. This one comes from Joe over at Joe Matthews over at Franchise Performance Group. He put out a really great letter yesterday around the life cycle. So we know that life is normal. Life was normal a month ago. Everybody was, February was the largest month we've ever had. Life was very normal and people were excited. And now we have disruption. You see right there, the second stage, and we're falling into franchise buyer caution. And we don't know how long this is going to last. On the right side, you see here that Joe says the franchise investor will experience a 2 to 4 month period of confusion as they try to sort out events and see what happens if anything changes. In 4 to 6 months, the future appears more predictable or returns to normal, and franchise investors re-engage franchisors with as much vigor as before the disruption. And as discussed, franchise candidates do not necessarily go away, but they delay the decision to move forward until the future appears more predictable. And that's that phase 4 there. The future becomes predictable and return to normal. Something franchisors may want to consider is, prior to this, there was some terms that were not allowed. Things like first right of refusal, things like, put a deposit down. I have heard from more franchisors that they might become a little bit more lenient in some of those things to allow candidates to commit while still having some sort of safety net to understand what the climate is going to look like here in a few months. So maybe just assess your own personal franchise situation and see if there's any flexibility in there that maybe there hadn't been prior.
Wisdom.
Okay. So what do we do during these uncertain times? Like Joe had, we are right now in franchise buyer caution. So what do we do? Well, the term that we use at Franchise Fastlane is a development director, and that's what we expect. We needed to direct. We are directors. We are not order takers. So we need to give our candidates direction on what to do during this time. And we need to remember the terms we use are important. A candidate may say, I want to stop. Well, we don't want to stop. Maybe we want to pause, but even that's not ideal. We want to use or leverage this time, this free time we have at home, to become educated. And I'll show you a little bit more on that. So you may be looking at this slide thinking, what does home building have to do with it? This slide illustrates a plan. And so it makes me think back to when I built my home. I remember prior to building my home, I had to go to the bank and say, I would like a loan, a construction loan. And we sat down and said, okay, after I build the foundation, that's step 1. Mr. Banker, after I build the foundation, I'm going to come asking for some money. And then the second phase is we're going to go and we're going to frame. And after that, Mr. Banker, I'm going to ask for some money. And then we're going to drywall. And then I'm going to ask for money. And then we're going to finish the home. And then I'm going to ask for money. And every time I went and asked the banker for money, he said, great, here it is. I expected you to do it. And it was because we had a plan. He knew exactly when I was going to ask, what we were going to do, and it aligned. Well, where we are in franchise development is no different. We have to have a plan. So if you look above at Joe's life cycle, we talked about that, the 5 stages that he goes through. Well, Franchise Fastlane has a plan as well. So we can either sit around and wait for the future to become predictable, we can wait for things to become normal, or we can know that we are currently in disruption and franchise buyer caution and have our own plan for what we do in those two phases. So a lot of candidates, I think, are going to say, maybe now's the time to pause. Maybe I just want to kind of get through this period and then decide what's going to happen. No, we're directors. We are not order takers, right? This is a time where we say, it's not a time to pause. This is a time to educate yourself. Let's use your free time. Let's move through the process. Nobody's asking you to make a buying decision today, but let's leverage what you have, which is time, to educate yourself and get ready. Then let's get a funding assessment going. Let's connect you with one of our funding partners to see, yes, maybe the 401k is not what it used to be, but is that the only option for funding? Money is becoming more available. The government is going to step in, and that's the next thing we're going to tell them is we expect some government help. So when that happens, let's stay aware of what those things are and make sure that we understand how it can apply to your personal situation. From there, the market's going to return, and when the market returns, that's when we're going to be ready to make a decision. So again, we are planning, we're telling them we're going to start with education. We're going to get a funding assessment. We expect the government to step in and say, here's some cheaper money or some easier access to money. Then we expect the market to return. Then it's time to make a decision. Or we could have just waited until the future became predictable and started the 6 to 10 week process at that point. But we want to leverage the free time that they have. And something that you said that was really smart the other day when I was talking to you, Red, is get a commitment. What does market return mean? Because we all know what happens. The market's going to start moving like this, and the candidate may say, well, I want to see where the top is, so let's just keep waiting. Let's wait until the market is, even above where it used to be. Now, we need to get a commitment to say, okay, where does that market need to be through your funding assessment for us to really understand when you're eligible for the funding that you need.
And put it in writing and send it to them and get a confirmation, and then hold them accountable to that as you move forward with reminders of how we're proceeding towards that. Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it. You got it. Terminology, right? There's a terminology that we will be using at Fastlane. First, we're going to use the word understand. We understand that things are uncertain. We're going to use the word educate. We don't stop or pause. This is the perfect time to educate yourself. We're going to use the word temporary. This is temporary. China's already recovering. We know we're going to bounce back. We're going to use experiencing. You're experiencing what it looks like to work on your own schedule, right? Think about that. People are sitting at home, opening their own personal mail at the same time that they're opening work emails. They're starting to understand what it's like to kind of work on their own schedule and their own flow. That may create some curiosity for people to think, well, how can that translate into business or franchise ownership? We're going to use the word prepare. Let's prepare now and be ready to pull the trigger when the economy comes back. We're going to say easier. Money is easier to access than ever before, and money is cheaper than it's ever been before. You see some of the bullets there. Right now, the Fed rate's at 0. We've cut it to 0. We still have prime and we still have the bank rate. Currently, prime's at 3.25. Bank rates right now, they're allowed to charge anywhere from 2 to 2.75 for their own margin. So we're seeing an interest rate today of about 5.25 to 6. Just a month ago, I think that was close to 8. So we're already starting to see a couple of points off, and we expect to see more. Red, I don't know if you want me to go through all these objections or not. I have about 5.
Let's everybody can take a screenshot of this if they need to. This is so golden, Ryan. Thank you for that. I think I'm moving us around so people can see all the answers you've got. The common objections. Again, we talked about these the other day on our IFPG franchisor and consultant calls, and we're going to do more of that this coming Tuesday. But hopefully everybody can see this screen. Feel free to move forward when you can.
Yep, you got it. And then the next one's the same thing. I'll just pause here for a second if anybody wants to get a screenshot.
Understanding how to answer, just the smallest tweaks in your answers can make such a difference. A one-word tweak, using education, using this is a process, getting clarity on their thoughts on where we are in this market, where we are with this virus craze and the fears involved, understanding their fear, mirroring that fear, but with strength and with a dose of optimism. You've got, you're a leading franchise sales organization, and the verbiage you have and your willingness to share this with the world is so much appreciated, Ryan.
Of course. Yeah, I'm a big believer and we're in this together. So share it with the world and let's all rise. The last one I want to focus on here is this bottom one. What is your brand doing during this time to take care of their franchisees? Every franchisor is going to be different, and the resources available to every franchisor is going to be different. I hear the words royalty deferment thrown out a lot, but we all know not every franchisor has the ability to defer royalties. So what are some other ways that they can lead, even if it's just more communication, right? And that's what we're asking our leadership, our brands to do. So just in this last week, we've asked our brands to send out letters, to put together videos, to develop what their response is going to be to the coronavirus. Many have started, our fitness concepts have started offering online classes. One of our brands that works a lot with schools, well, schools are closed. They were one that were willing to do some royalty deferments until school comes back up. We just have a lot of leadership that's happening from our franchisors right now. Barry in the middle with Premier Martial Arts, he called every candidate we have in a late stage with Premier Martial Arts right now to make sure that they know they're going to get support and they're going to get assistance and hand-holding from them throughout this process. So you see on the right, just a few ideas that we're giving to our own development directors on how they lead through communication. Send franchisees update videos to your pipeline about how the brand, about brand updates, government updates, new funding options. We call these pipeline pushes. Let's just make sure people are aware of what's going on. If your franchisor is offering a new program, a new benefit, they're offering online classes, let's start inviting these people to go see those online classes. Let the candidates know. Build your development Facebook pages now and invite your candidates. We're big believers in Facebook development pages where we can invite candidates to come see some of the things that are going on with the brand. This is a great time to really make sure the content there is strong. Send broker messages out about how you're still doing deals. We did 3 new deals just yesterday, and I remember, not that I remember, but right away we got messages back from those networks saying, you guys are doing great. Thank you for continuing to push these things forward during these times. Take pictures of your computer screens for virtual discovery days like we saw from EcoMaids and post it on social media. You know, we always like posting videos of our packed out discovery days, people sitting there eating dinner or doing workouts similar to what you do often, Red. Well, let's just change it up. There's no reason we can't still send those photos out, but let's do it the way EcoMaids did it. Let's have virtual photos of our computers. Let's just do the little things that are going to keep people engaged into the process.
Love it, brother. You're always going to get some pushback. We've posted deal announcements, and some people get offended that we're posting deal announcements, and we're just sharing the truth. But you know, you have to be cognizant of folks' fears of the situation many folks are in, where they are struggling. So temper your good news with that, but still don't hold it back. Don't just hide your light when you can share something as great as that can be such an encouragement to so many when you are indeed doing deals.
Agreed. And something I should have said is we will never post a deal announcement or news without a candidate's permission. So agreed. Keep it real on what's happening in the world, but we like to celebrate the wins too. We try to stay as positive as possible. I'm getting close to the end here. And so the next is what we hope happens. Now, not all of this is rosy information either. Some of this is tough and it affects people's lives, but it could be an opportunity to move into business ownership. And that's what I'm passionate about. I am passionate about franchise business ownership. So if I do see somebody getting furloughed or laid off, I feel terrible for their personal situation, but I'm hopeful that it leads them into business ownership because I know how it's affected my life. So you'll see here, once the coronavirus is passed, we may be set up for the best franchise awarding opportunities in recent history. I've heard 18% of American workforce has already been furloughed or laid off. That is terrible for them. And we know that there's going to be some uncertain times. This number will most likely climb higher, and it will show people what it's like to work from home or to control their schedule or whatever that may be. This may pique curiosities to explore franchise sales. So hopefully these individuals turn a hard situation into an opportunity. Number 2, lending should be cheaper and easier to obtain than ever before. Now, let me caveat this by not all of this is available today, but the government is talking about some of these things that may be available. Lower interest rates than have ever been available. possibly 10% money down on SBA loans. The government's talking about moving to a 90% SBA guarantee, where it previously was 80% for the banks, which will free up money. I've even heard in some businesses 30-year amortization schedules. I mean, these are mortgage amortization schedules. If we could ever get to that, franchisees can really control the payment and how to get into business ownership. The waiving of closing costs have been discussed. And then I think what all of us expect is that the stock market to bounce back at record highs when this all passes. And I'll just close with one of my favorites, Angela Duckworth, in the book Grit. Grit is the number one indicator of a person's success. So, we can either approach this as doom and gloom. We can approach this as an opportunity. That's the way I'm going to look at it. And every day I'm going to come to my home office now with a sense of grit and to continue to move forward until this passes.
Excellent, Ryan. Thank you. There's so much gold in here, guys. I hope you've benefited from this. We all love Ryan, Carrie, the whole franchise Fastlane team. You're great friends of IFPG. You're such givers, such servants to the industry, and an inspiration to us all. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Ryan. We appreciate you, and we will see you tomorrow on our franchisor call, helping the candidates through this process, other ways to optimize the overall discovery process for franchisors. Thank you again, Ryan. Ryan Zink, Franchise Fastlane.
Thanks for having me.